When people want to create a trust, they usually focus on the documents, the assets, avoiding probate, tax questions, all the technical stuff. And it's important. But one of the most important parts of your trust isn't the paperwork at all, and it's the person you choose to run it. In this video, we'll talk about how to choose a trustee effectively, because choosing the wrong person can lead to delays, disagreements, and a lot of unnecessary stress for your loved ones. I'm Jack Duffley, attorney and founder of Duffley Law. We help families with estate planning and probate. We create a lot of trust-based plans, and the trustee choice is a major sticking point for a lot of people. So let's break it down in a simple way. First, let's define what a trustee actually does. A trustee is the person who manages and distributes the assets inside of your trust after you pass away or if you become incapacitated and you can no longer manage the trust yourself. That person steps into your shoes and handles things like dealing with your home, paying bills, managing investments, and making sure your wishes are followed. It's an important role, but it generally doesn't require someone to be a financial expert or a legal professional, although it can help in many cases. But what matters most is reliability and honesty. You're looking for someone who can follow directions, communicate well, and stay organized, and of course, someone you can trust. It's in the name after all. The best trustee is someone who does the small things right. They keep records, they don't get overwhelmed by responsibilities, they're respectful to your beneficiaries, they take the role seriously. If someone is already managing their own life reasonably well, that's usually a good sign they might be able to handle something like being a trustee, although it goes a bit beyond that, of course. Now, the next question most people have is whether they should pick a family member or choose a professional trustee. And there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer here, but here are some helpful guidelines. For one, if your situation is simple, maybe the person needs to sell a house and close some accounts to distribute things to one or two people, then choosing a trusted family member can work really well. Maybe you don't need a professional there. It's often the most affordable and the most natural decision. Adult children, siblings, or longtime close friends are common choices, but it always depends on the person. But if your situation is more complicated, maybe you have blended family dynamics, or you expect disagreements, or you own many rental properties, or an operationally intensive business, then choosing a family member can sometimes create tension or unnecessary struggle here. In those cases, a professional trustee can be a good option. It can keep things more neutral and structured, and you'd also have a professional on board who maybe has dealt with these things a number of times before. Just remember, professional trustees charge fees, and even though family trustees can also be compensated if you allow it, the cost structure is often different and more expensive when you're using a professional. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's about what will actually give your family clarity and peace when they need it most. Another thing to think about, your trustee doesn't need to be the same person as your executor or your financial or medical powers of attorney. People often assume they should match, but that's not necessary. You can divide responsibilities if it makes things smoother. Sometimes one person is great with handling medical decisions, while someone else might be better with the finances. And you can match strengths to roles and just do what you're most comfortable with. You also might want to think about how well your trustee can communicate with the people who will benefit from the trust. The trustee may need to talk with multiple family members, explain timelines, and handle questions about distributions. So if the person you're considering tends to avoid tough conversations or gets flustered easily, that might lead to some misunderstandings or conflict that we could avoid. On the other hand, if they're calm, patient, and reasonable, even if they're not a true expert in money or law, they can often do a very good job, so it's not like they should be written off just because they're not a financial planner or something like that. Another thing to know while naming trustees, it's important to have backup trustees named as well, because the first choice you might have might not be available or willing to serve, so we want to have backup trustees in place just in case. Now, another potential area for concern is when people name co-trustees. That means two or more people are acting together as trustees. On paper, it sounds fair and maybe could be really effective, but in practice, it can create delays or conflicts, especially if everyone has to agree on decisions before anything happens. If that's the case, everyone has to stay in sync, and that's not always the case, of course. So it's often easier just to name one trustee rather than multiple. But that choice can rub some folks the wrong way, so it can be difficult to narrow it down between multiple trustee candidates sometimes. Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. There's a lot of things to consider when picking a trustee. And there's some questions you can ask yourself. If you weren't around anymore, who would likely step in to help your family in that case? who would stay calm, who would follow directions, who would respect your wishes even if they might be a little different than how they would have handled something themselves. Whoever that person is might be a great choice, though there's often concern that someone isn't exactly the perfect choice for a role. It's not an easy decision to make. If you have a revocable trust, you can usually update your trust as circumstances change. So people move, people age, relationships evolve, your estate plan should grow and adjust along with your life, and that might mean changing your trustee choices. Choosing the right trustee is one of the more difficult decisions you'll make when setting up your estate plan. It can be the difference between a smooth, stress-free process and a complicated, emotional one. If you want help working through this decision or building a trust designed to protect your family, we handle that every day here at our firm. You can reach out to us to see if we might be able to help and try to map out the best strategy for your situation. Either way, thanks for watching and follow for more estate planning content, and I'll see you in the next one.